Vincent Castellano could kill a man without blinking. But when his 4-year-old daughter asked him to help the broken single mother crying 3 tables away, the most feared mobster in the city realized he was about to make a choice that would either save his soul or destroy everything he'd built to protect her. If this story's got you hooked, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I've got another story coming your way that's just as thrilling, maybe even better. You definitely don't want to miss it. She was counting pennies for her son's birthday dinner. He was counting bodies he'd buried. When Isabella Castellano whispered, "Why doesn't she smile like us, Daddy?" the Mafia boss made a decision that would put a target on everyone he loved. The chandelier above Le Paradis cast fractured light across the dining room, each crystal prism refracting the kind of opulence that made poverty feel obscene. Vincent adjusted Isabella's napkin for the 3rd time, his scarred knuckles, souvenirs from a youth spent climbing the ranks with fists instead of diplomacy, contrasting sharply against the pristine white linen. The dragon tattoo on his neck seemed to writhe in the candlelight, a permanent reminder that some stains never wash clean, no matter how expensive the suit. "Daddy, you're doing it again," Bella said, her small hand patting his arm with the patience of someone far older than 4. Her blue dress, the one she'd insisted on wearing because princesses wear blue too, not just pink, rustled as she leaned closer. "You have your scary face on." Vincent forced his expression to soften, though years of intimidation made it feel like arranging broken glass into a smile. "Sorry, princess. Just thinking." "About work?" "About you," he lied. Well, half-lied. He was thinking about her, specifically about the promise he'd made 6 months ago when her mother abandoned them both. The promise that he'd be different. Better. The kind of father who showed up to recitals instead of sending Marco with an envelope of cash and an excuse. The kind of father who didn't have 3 different phones, each one a hotline to a different flavor of felony. Marco hovered near the entrance like a well-tailored shadow, his eyes constantly scanning, cataloging, calculating. Former Army Ranger turned consigliere, he'd saved Vincent's life twice and helped end several others. Right now, he was probably counting the silverware, memorizing faces, and wondering why his boss had insisted on sitting in the main dining room instead of the private suite where business was usually conducted. Because this wasn't business. This was fatherhood. And Vincent was discovering that the latter was infinitely more terrifying than the former. "Can I have dessert?" Isabella asked, her eyes wide with the kind of hope that could negotiate treaties. "You haven't finished your dinner." "I'm saving room." The logic was airtight. Vincent had to admire the strategy. She'd make a hell of a negotiator someday. God help him. He was about to respond when Bella's attention shifted, her gaze locking onto something across the room with the laser focus of a 4-year-old who'd spotted injustice. "Daddy, why does that lady look sad?" Vincent followed her line of sight to the table near the kitchen, restaurant purgatory, where walk-ins and tourists were banished. The woman sitting there made his chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the bypass surgery he'd narrowly avoided last year. She was stunning, even exhausted. Maybe especially exhausted. Her bone structure suggested someone who'd once turned heads, but life had taken a toll that no amount of concealer could hide. The white blazer she wore was immaculate but slightly dated, designer probably, but from several seasons ago. The kind of outfit someone wore when they needed to feel powerful, but couldn't afford to actually be it. Her son sat across from her, maybe 10 years old, his button-down shirt straining slightly at the shoulders. Growth spurt, Vincent thought. The kid was probably shooting up faster than his mother could afford to replace his wardrobe. He recognized that, too, his own childhood had been a parade of too small clothes and hand-me-down shoes that pinched. A waiter delivered a single cupcake with a sparkler. The complimentary birthday gesture that Le Paradis offered to every guest, regardless of how much they spent. The boy's face lit up like Christmas, and the woman's smile in response was heartbreaking in its ferocity, the kind of smile that required every ounce of strength to maintain. Vincent watched her hands as she studied the menu. They trembled slightly. She was doing math, he realized. Calculating pennies, weighing dignity against solvency, trying to give her son a memory that wouldn't cost them their electricity bill. He knew that calculation. His mother had made it 1,000 times. She does look sad, baby, Vincent murmured, his voice rougher than intended. Isabella's lower lip pushed out in that way that meant she was about to dispense wisdom that would wreck him. Why doesn't she order the expensive food like us? There it was. The question that separated the innocent from the initiated. The divide between those who understood that menus had prices and those who never had to care. Maybe she can't afford it, princess. Why not? Because life isn't fair. Because the universe is a cosmic accountant with a sadistic sense of humor. Because some people are born on third base while others are born in the parking lot, and the game is rigged from the start. Sometimes grown-ups have hard times, he said instead, which was the truth wrapped in the kind of soft language that let children sleep at night. Isabella processed this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Then, can we help her? Vincent's phone buzzed, the red one, which meant something had gone sideways with the shipment from Newark. Marco was already moving toward him, his expression screaming crisis management. But Vincent held up one hand, stopping him mid-stride. Boss, we have a... Not now. It's the Morettas. They're saying the count was short and... Vincent's look could have flash-frozen lava. I said, not now. Marco froze, recalibrated, and retreated. In 15 years of service, Vincent had never seen him look quite that confused. Good. Let him be confused. Let them all be confused. This was his night with Isabella, and he'd be damned if he let the vultures pick at it. But the question remained, hanging in the air between him and his daughter, like a challenge from the universe itself. Can we help her? Vincent Castellano had built an empire on violence, fear, and the kind of moral flexibility that would make Machiavelli blush. He'd broken bones, broken families, broken laws so numerous they'd need their own law library. He'd done things that would keep a therapist employed for decades, acts that stained his soul darker than any tattoo ever could. But he'd never claimed to be a good man, just a necessary one. Until now. Until his daughter, his pure, perfect daughter who still believed he hung the moon, asked him to be better than what he was. He signaled to their waiter, a young man named Philippe who'd been appropriately terrified of him, the woman and boy near the kitchen. What's their situation? Philippe glanced over, then back, clearly wondering if this was some kind of test. In Vincent's world, everything was a test. They're celebrating the young man's birthday, sir. I believe they've ordered the prix-fixe menu, which was the cheapest option. 3 courses for $49, the kind of meal that was technically food but spiritually disappointing. Their bill. Bring it to me. Sir? You heard me. And send over your best champagne. The Cristal, not the house shit. Tell them it's compliments of the restaurant for the birthday. Philippe's eyes widened. The Cristal is $800 a bottle, sir. Vincent fixed him with a look that had made prosecutors reconsider their career choices. Did I stutter? No, sir. Right away, sir. As Philippe scurried off, Isabella clapped her hands together. Are we helping her, Daddy? We're trying, Princess. Good. Because she has a pretty smile. She should smile more. Vincent's throat tightened. Out of the mouths of babes came truths that philosophers spent lifetimes chasing. Yes, she should smile more. They all should. But the world wasn't built for smiles. It was built for survival, for competition, for the strong to devour the weak. Except maybe, just maybe, it didn't have to be. He watched as Philippe approached the woman's table with the champagne, watched her confusion morph into shock, watched her shake her head and try to refuse. But Philippe was well-trained. He insisted it was policy, a birthday tradition, completely complimentary. The lie rolled off his tongue smooth as silk because he'd seen what happened to people who disappointed Vincent Castellano. The woman finally accepted, her hands shaking as she poured a small amount for her son, mixed with sparkling water. Vincent noted with approval and took a sip herself. Her eyes closed for a moment, and when they opened, they were wet. Isabella noticed too. Daddy, why is she crying now? Sometimes people cry when they're happy, baby. That's weird. Yeah, Vincent agreed, his own eyes burning in a way they hadn't since he was 15, and watching his father's casket being lowered into the ground. It really is. The champagne had been a mistake. Not because of the cost. Vincent wiped his ass with $800 bills, but because it had drawn attention. The kind of attention that made the rival underboss 3 tables over sit up straighter, made Marco's hand drift toward his jacket, made the entire restaurant suddenly aware that Vincent, the Viper Castellano, was conducting some kind of operation. Even acts of charity, in his world, looked like power plays. The woman had noticed.
Of course she had.
She wasn't stupid. You didn't survive as a single mother in this city by being oblivious. Her eyes scanned the room with the wariness of a gazelle at a watering hole, trying to identify which predator had just shown her kindness. Because in her experience, Vincent guessed, kindness always came with teeth. Their eyes met across the dining room. Hers were dark brown, almost black in the candlelight, and they held a question that Vincent couldn't answer without unraveling every carefully constructed lie he'd told himself about who he was. She raised her glass slightly. A thank you, an acknowledgement, a warning, maybe, that she saw him. Vincent nodded once, then turned his attention back to Isabella, who was constructing an elaborate fortress out of dinner rolls. Daddy, can we invite them to sit with us? No, princess. They're having their own special dinner. But there's room at our table. And you always say it's not nice to eat alone.
When had he said that?
Probably never. Isabella had a habit of attributing wisdom to him that he'd never possessed, filling in the gaps of his parenting with optimism that would make a motivational speaker weep. I don't think they want to be bothered, baby. Did you ask? The logic was infallible. Also terrifying. Vincent tried to imagine the conversation. Hi, I'm Vincent Castellano. You may have seen my mugshot on the news. Mind if my daughter and I crash your birthday dinner? Eating with strangers isn't. But you eat with strangers all the time. Marco is always bringing people to the house, and you have meetings with people I don't know, and that's different. That's work. So, we can eat with strangers for work, but not for fun? Christ, when had his daughter become a prosecuting attorney? Vincent glanced at Marco, who was trying very hard not to smile. Traitor. Before Vincent could formulate a response that didn't involve explaining the difference between business associates and innocent civilians, Philippe returned with a small envelope on a silver tray. Their check, sir. As requested. Vincent opened it. $87.43. With the champagne he'd added, the total would have been just under $1,000. He pulled out his wallet, the one that was thicker than most people's weekly paychecks, and extracted $1,500 bills. Pay their bill. Keep $500 for yourself. Put the rest in an envelope and tell them. He paused, trying to find words that wouldn't sound like what they were. A mob boss salving his conscience. Tell them a fellow parent wanted to pay it forward. Philippe's hands shook slightly as he took the money. Very generous, sir. And Philippe? If anyone asks who did this, you don't know. It was an anonymous guest. Understand? Of course, sir. Complete discretion. After Philippe left, Isabella was staring at him with an expression Vincent couldn't quite read.
Pride? Confusion?
The dawning realization that Daddy's import-export business generated the kind of disposable income that normal people didn't have? That was really nice, Daddy. It was nothing, princess. Mommy used to say you were too busy being important to be nice. But I think you're nice and important. The comment landed like a knife between his ribs. His ex-wife's final words before she'd left. You're so busy being a king, Vincent, you forgot how to be a man. She'd been right, of course. He'd built an empire while his marriage crumbled, prioritized power over partnership. Vincent's vision blurred. He blinked rapidly, telling himself it was the candle smoke, the restaurant's overzealous air conditioning, anything but the possibility that Vincent, the Viper Castellano, who'd stared down federal prosecutors, rival bosses, and his own mortality, was about to cry in front of his 4-year-old daughter. I'm trying to be, baby. I'm really trying. A commotion near the kitchen saved him from having to elaborate. Philippe was at the woman's table, and she was standing now, shaking her head emphatically, her voice rising above the restaurant's ambient murmur.
No.
Absolutely not. I can't accept this. Vincent couldn't hear Philippe's response, but he could see the woman's body language, rigid with pride, embarrassment, and something that looked like anger. Her son was tugging at her sleeve, confused, probably wondering why Mom was making a scene when someone was trying to be nice. Because pride was often the last thing people had when everything else was stripped away. Marco materialized at Vincent's elbow. "Boss, she's making noise. You want me to handle it?" "Handle it how?" "I'll explain that refusing the gift would be unwise." Which was Marco speak for intimidation. Vincent nearly laughed. "So, your solution is to threaten a single mother into accepting charity." "When you put it like that, it sounds bad." "It is bad, you idiot." The woman was gathering her things now, her son's face crumpling as he realized they were leaving. The birthday dinner was over, ruined by pride and good intentions gone sideways. Isabella was watching too, her lower lip trembling. "Daddy, she's leaving." "Why is she leaving?" "Because the world is complicated, princess. Because sometimes kindness feels like condescension. Because your father is a hammer who sees every problem as a nail, and some problems require a gentler touch." "Stay here with Marco," Vincent said, standing. "Boss, I don't think. That's why I pay you to shoot people, not to think. Watch my daughter." Vincent crossed the restaurant with the purposeful stride of a man used to parting crowds. Other diners instinctively leaned away, some recognizing him, others simply sensing danger the way animals sense earthquakes before they hit. He reached the woman's table just as she was pulling on her coat, thrift store, Vincent noted, but good quality. Someone who knew how to stretch a dollar without sacrificing dignity.
"Ma'am."
"May I have a moment?" She turned, and up close, Vincent could see the exhaustion etched into her features like scars. But also the strength. "Steel wrapped in silk," his mother would have said. "If you're the person who tried to pay for our dinner, you can save your breath. I don't accept charity." Her voice was cultured, educated. This wasn't someone born into poverty. This was someone who'd fallen into it, which was somehow worse. At least poverty you grew up with gave you the tools to survive it. "It's not charity," Vincent said. "It's a birthday present. For your son." "From a stranger?"
"No."
"Thank you, but no." Her son, tall for 10, with his mother's eyes and a determination in his jaw that suggested he'd inherited her stubbornness, stepped forward. "Mom, maybe we could." "Jordan, we're leaving." But Jordan wasn't moving. He was staring at Vincent with a kind of intensity that made Vincent suddenly self-conscious about the dragon on his neck, the scars on his knuckles, the expensive suit that screamed wealth acquired through means that didn't involve a 401k. "Are you famous?" Jordan asked. Vincent nearly laughed. "No, son. Not in any way you'd want to be." "Then why do people keep staring at you?" Smart kid. Observant. The kind of intelligence that would either save him or destroy him, depending on which path life shoved him down. "Jordan, that's rude," his mother snapped, but Vincent held up a hand. "It's a fair question. People stare because I have a reputation. Not all of it good. But tonight, I'm just a father having dinner with his daughter." He gestured toward Isabella, who was watching from their table with Marco looming behind her like a well-dressed gargoyle. "She saw your mother looking sad and asked if we could help. I'm just trying to teach her that when you can help, you should." The woman followed his gaze to Isabella, and something in her expression softened. Mothers recognized other parents, could spot the desperation of someone trying not to screw up their kid with their own baggage. "Your daughter is sweet," she said, her tone less hostile now. "But we still can't accept." "Then don't accept it for you. Accept it for him." Vincent looked at Jordan, who was watching the exchange with the wary hope of someone used to disappointment. It's his birthday. He deserves a celebration that doesn't come with a side of financial anxiety. "You don't know anything about our situation." "I know more than you think." Vincent's voice dropped, not threatening but honest.
"Raw."
"I know what it's like to watch your mother do math at a restaurant table. To see her smile while dying inside. To pretend everything's fine while the world's falling apart." The woman's eyes widened slightly. She'd heard the truth in his voice, recognized the kinship of shared trauma. "My name is Vincent," he continued. And I'm not asking you to owe me anything. I'm asking you to let a stranger do something nice for your son on his birthday. That's it. No strings. No expectations. She studied him for a long moment, searching his face for the lie, the angle, the inevitable betrayal that kindness always disguised. Vincent let her look, kept his expression open in a way that would have made Marco have a stroke if he could see it. Vulnerability was weakness in Vincent's world. But maybe, just maybe, it was also strength. Simone, she finally said. My name is Simone Carter. Vincent extended his hand. Simone hesitated, then shook it. Her grip was firm, no nonsense, the handshake of someone who'd had to be twice as good to get half as far. Nice to meet you, Simone. Would you and Jordan like to join my daughter and me for dessert? She's been wanting to make new friends, and honestly, I could use the company of someone who won't threaten to kneecap people. Simone's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Is that a common problem for you? You'd be surprised. Jordan was already looking at his mother with pleading eyes. The universal language of children everywhere. Please, Mom, please. Simone sighed, and Vincent knew he'd won. Just dessert. And I'm paying for my own meal. Deal. Vincent lied, because Philippe had already processed the payment and telling her that would ruin the fragile truce they'd established. As they walked back to his table, Marco's expression suggested Vincent had lost his damn mind. Isabella's expression suggested Christmas had come early. Hi, Bella chirped as they approached. I'm Isabella, but everyone calls me Bella. Do you like chocolate cake? I love chocolate cake. Daddy says I can't have caffeine after 6, but I think that's silly because I'm not even tired. Jordan laughed, a real laugh, not the polite kind, and just like that the ice broke. Vincent pulled out a chair for Simone, and she sat, still wary but warming. Marco hovered nearby, radiating disapproval and protection in equal measure. Marco, relax. We're having dessert, not negotiating a treaty. In your world, boss. Those are the same thing. Simone's eyes sharpened. Boss.
Shit.
It's a nickname, Vincent said quickly. From work. What kind of work requires nicknames and bodyguards? Vincent met her gaze, saw the intelligence there, knew she'd already figured it out. Or, at least suspected. The import-export business. Very competitive field. I'm sure it is. The way she said it made clear she wasn't buying his bullshit. But she also wasn't running, which meant either she was desperate, brave, or stupid. Vincent hoped it was the second one. Philippe appeared with menus, and Bella immediately launched into her dessert selection process, which involved reading every option aloud and providing commentary. Jordan joined in, and soon they were debating the merits of chocolate versus vanilla with the passion of philosophers arguing existentialism. Simone watched her son with an expression that made Vincent's chest ache. Love, exhaustion, fierce protection. All the things he felt when he looked at Isabella. He's a good kid, Vincent said quietly. He's everything, Simone replied. My whole world. I understand that. More than you know. They sat in silence for a moment, two parents bound by the universal terror of raising children in a world that seemed designed to break them. Then Simone turned to face him fully, her expression unreadable. Why are you really doing this, Vincent? He could have lied. Should have lied. But something about her directness demanded honesty. Because my daughter asked me to be a better man. And I'm trying to figure out what that looks like. Simone held his gaze, searching. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Okay, she said. Let's have dessert. And for the first time in 32 years, Vincent Castellano felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope. The dessert arrived in a parade of sugar and ceremony, molten chocolate cake, creme brulee, tiramisu, and something the menu called deconstructed apple pie that looked like it had been assembled by an architect with a vendetta against tradition. Bella and Jordan attacked their plates with a focused intensity of surgeons, while Vincent and Simone maintained the careful dance of adults who'd learned that comfort was often just delayed catastrophe. So, Simone said, her spoon poised over the creme brulee like a weapon. Import-export. That's code for something, isn't it? Vincent nearly choked on his espresso. Marco stiffened nearby, his hand drifting toward his jacket in a gesture so subtle only someone trained to spot it would notice. Simone noticed. "Relax," she said, her voice dry as desert sand. "I'm a tax attorney. Or I was, before the firm decided that restructuring was a polite way to say we're keeping the white guys and cutting everyone else. I've seen enough creative accounting to recognize when someone's dancing around the truth." A tax attorney. Of course. Vincent would have laughed if the irony wasn't so sharp. Here he was, a man who'd built an empire on tax evasion, money laundering, and financial instruments that made the IRS weep, sitting across from someone who'd probably dreamed of bringing people like him to justice. "I'm in acquisitions," Vincent said carefully. "Asset management. High-risk investments. In other words, you're either a mob or a hedge fund. And hedge fund managers don't usually have bodyguards who carry Glocks." Marco's expression suggested he was reconsidering his stance on threatening single mothers. Vincent leaned back, studying Simone with newfound respect. "You're observant. I'm a black woman in America. Observation is survival." She set down her spoon, her gaze level and unflinching. "Look, I'm not wearing a wire. I'm not law enforcement. I'm just a mother trying to give my son a birthday dinner, and somehow I've ended up eating tiramisu with— what did that waiter call you? Mr. Castellano?" The name hung in the air like a confession. Vincent watched recognition flicker across her face, the slight widening of her eyes, the almost imperceptible stiffening of her spine. She knew the name. Everyone in the city knew the name. "You're him," she breathed. "Vincent the Viper Castellano. The prosecutor who tried to indict you last year. He was on the news every night until suddenly he wasn't. He decided to pursue other opportunities," Vincent said blandly. "In witness protection. Can't confirm or deny." Simone's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her purse. "Jordan, we need to go." "But, Mom, we just got dessert." "Now, baby." Vincent raised both hands, palms out, the universal gesture of surrender. "Ms. Carter."
Simone, please.
"I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm just trying to have dinner with my daughter. Mafia bosses don't just do anything. Everything's a play." "You're right," Vincent admitted, because lying seemed pointless now. "Usually everything is a play. But tonight? Tonight I'm just a dad who's trying not to screw up his kid the way my father screwed up me." Bella had stopped eating, sensing the tension with a child's radar for adult dysfunction.
Daddy?
"Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Princess. Ms. Carter was just realizing I made a terrible mistake," Simone finished, standing. "Thank you for the champagne and the generous gesture, but we really should." "My daddy's a good person," Bella said suddenly, her voice small but fierce. "He helps people. He helped you." The words landed like artillery shells. Simone froze, looking at this 4-year-old child defending a man whose reputation was built on violence, and something in her expression cracked. "Sweetie, I'm sure your daddy is wonderful to you, but grown-up stuff is complicated." "Because he's scary-looking?" Bella's tone suggested she'd heard this before, had maybe overheard whispers at her preschool, comments from other parents. "People think he's scary because he has tattoos and a big voice. But he makes me pancakes with smiley faces, and he knows all the words to Frozen, and he cries at the end of Toy Story, even though he says he doesn't." Vincent wanted to sink through the floor. Marco was definitely smirking now, the bastard. Jordan was staring at Vincent with new eyes. "You cry at Toy Story?" "The third one," Vincent admitted. "When Andy gives away his toys. Gets me every time." "Me too." Jordan's face lit up. "Mom says I'm too old to cry at movies, but I can't help it." "You're never too old to cry at movies," Vincent said. "Anyone who says different is lying or dead inside." Simone was still standing, caught between flight and the bizarre reality that her son was bonding with a mobster over Pixar films. "Please," Vincent said quietly, just for her. "Stay. Finish your dessert. Let your son have his birthday. I give you my word, and despite what you've heard about me, my word means something. You're safe here. Both of you. Your word? The word of a criminal? The word of a father." Vincent's voice hardened. I've done things I'm not proud of. Things that keep me up at night. But I have never hurt a child or a woman who didn't come at me first. My daughter thinks I'm a hero, and I'm trying like hell not to prove her wrong. So please.
Sit. Stay.
Let me do one decent thing tonight. The restaurant had gone quiet around them, other diners sensing drama but not quite understanding the stakes. Marco had positioned himself between Vincent and potential threats, his body language screaming protection detail. Simone looked at her son, who was watching her with pleading eyes. Then at Bella, who'd gone very still, afraid her new friend was leaving. Then at Vincent, searching his face for the monster she expected and finding only a tired man trying to be better than his circumstances. She sat down.
One dessert, she said.
Then we're gone, and we never speak of this again.
Deal.
The tension broke like a fever. Bella and Jordan resumed their assault on the chocolate cake, discussing the relative merits of different superhero movies with the intensity of film critics. Marco relaxed incrementally, though his hand never strayed far from his weapon. Vincent and Simone ate in silence, the unspoken agreement between them fragile as spun glass. Finally, Simone spoke. I shouldn't have brought Jordan here. This restaurant. It's too expensive. But he'd been talking about it for months. His friend from school had a birthday party here and wouldn't shut up about it. And I wanted to give him one night where he didn't have to be the kid whose mom shops at Goodwill. There's no shame in Goodwill, Vincent said. I grew up in clothes from there. But your daughter doesn't. No, Vincent admitted. She doesn't. Because I decided a long time ago that I'd do whatever it took to make sure she never knew the kind of poverty I did. Even if it meant becoming someone I'm not sure I like very much. Simone studied him. You know what's funny? I became a lawyer because I wanted to fight injustice. Hold powerful people accountable. And here I am, unemployed, struggling to pay rent, while people like you, no offense, build empires breaking the rules I spent my life defending. None taken. You're not wrong. So, why bother being good? Why try? The system's broken, Vincent.
Rigged.
People like you win and people like me lose. Vincent set down his fork, considering his words carefully. Because my daughter asked me to help you. And in that moment, I realized that maybe the system's broken because people like me stopped trying to fix it, or never tried at all. One act of charity doesn't erase a lifetime of crime. No, Vincent agreed. It doesn't, but maybe it's a start. Before Simone could respond, Philippe appeared with a small wrapped box. For the birthday boy. Compliments of the house. Jordan opened it to reveal a high-end gaming headset, the kind that cost $300 and had been on his wish list for months, if his immediate gasp of recognition was any indication.
Mom,
Look. Simone's eyes snapped to Vincent, who maintained his most innocent expression. Don't look at me. I didn't order that. The hell you didn't. Language, Miss Carter. There are children present. Despite herself, Simone laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. You're unbelievable. I've been called worse. They finished dessert in comfortable silence, the kids chattering, the adults processing the strange détente they'd stumbled into. When Philippe brought the check, it was already paid, by an anonymous benefactor, of course.
Simone didn't fight it this time.
She just shook her head, equal parts exasperated and grateful. As they prepared to leave, Bella hugged Jordan goodbye with the ferocity of someone making a new best friend. Simone extended her hand to Vincent, and this time, her grip was warmer. Thank you, she said quietly, for tonight. For reminding me that maybe the world isn't entirely broken. Thank you, Vincent replied, for reminding me that maybe I'm not entirely broken either. She paused at the door, looking back. Vincent, if you're serious about being better, start by getting out before your daughter has to visit you in prison. Or worse. Then she was gone, taking Jordan and the strange magic of the evening with her. Vincent stood in the restaurant's entrance, Bella's hand in his, Marco hovering like a disapproving parent. Boss, Marco said carefully. That was either the smartest thing you've ever done or the dumbest. I haven't decided which. Vincent looked down at his daughter, who was smiling up at him with uncomplicated love. Me neither, Marco. Me neither. But as they walked out into the night, Vincent made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd start the process of legitimizing his businesses, transitioning from the shadows into something his daughter could be proud of. It wouldn't be easy. It might not even be possible. But for the first time in 32 years, Vincent Castellano wanted to try. Because his daughter had asked him to help a stranger, and in helping her, he'd found something he thought he'd lost forever, the possibility of redemption. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So, do check it out.